Good afternoon, YouTube family. How are we doing today? My name is Anthony. This is Palmetto Prepared, and today we're going to talk about hygiene and sanitation. Now, this is one of those subjects that's pretty boring, and a lot of time people won't listen to this. They don't want anything to do with it because they think they know everything. Because let's face it, we are in 2019, and in 2019, we are grateful enough and advanced enough to have had thousands of years of trial and error beforehand to see what works and what doesn't work, and we should know better when it comes down to a lot of hygiene and sanitation practices. However, the reason why I'm making this video is not even necessarily an SHTF scenario, but I think with the fact that we all know better, sometimes we don't practice what we should be doing, and that's why I wanted to at least make this video to kind of put it in our forefront of why it's so important of having good hygiene and sanitation practices, because we don't want to regress into a situation just from one disaster that would put people to potentially die from bad hygiene, and we don't want to see that happen. So that's why I'm making this video. I was actually, one of my friends, Tyler from Let's Talk About Prepping, did a video, I think yesterday, about medical, like the advancements in medical we've had that we kind of take for granted. Like, I was a C-section baby, so I wouldn't even be around if we didn't have the, medical advancement to do C-section, or if I was around, my mom wouldn't be, that kind of thing. And it kind of got me thinking about hygiene. We've come so far in terms of hygienic practices that we're not seeing the numbers die in a first world country versus the third world countries from basic things like clean water. And because we've had that for so long, I'd be afraid if there was a situation like a Hurricane Katrina or something where people would automatically regress and we would see those fatalities from bad sanitation. And that's why I wanted to do the video, so we can all kind of get on the same page. So let's go ahead and get into kind of why we're doing what we do. Like, I was doing a little bit of research on hygiene, and it was actually kind of funny because the ancient Egyptians and Aztecs used to use, urine as a disinfectant. That kind of thing is like, wow, well, I mean, it's antifungal, antibacterial, and I can see why they did it, but it's just, do you really want to pee on yourself? I mean, I don't. But you have that, and the Romans actually the ones who invented soap, like 2,800 years ago. So the Roman, I think we kind of don't appreciate the Romans and all the things that they were actually able to do so long ago, especially in the big cities, because they had the aqueducts, they had the bathhouses, they had actual plumbing in homes, like sewers, carved out sewers, kind of had their own designated spots. Where this was 2,000 years ago, and they had that. And then you fast forward to the Middle Ages in England and Europe and stuff like that, and the people are taking pots from their bedroom, crapping in pots and tossing it out the window. That was their form of hygiene and sanitation. And they wonder why the Black Plague was so prevalent and killed so many people. It's like, the common sense aspect now, it wasn't connecting the dots back then. So I know the Black Plague was spread by fleas on rats from Asia, that kind of thing, but when the number of Jewish people killed was vastly different than the number of normal people killed, because the Jews actually washed their hands as part of their religious practices versus other people that didn't wash their hands. And there's a huge difference in mortality rates, that kind of thing. Something as simple as washing your hands, we know better now, so that's why I wanted to do the video. Now, same thing with, taking care, like dental and oral hygiene. I mean, let's face it, oral hygiene wasn't practiced completely regularly until like World War II, when soldiers were forced by standards to actually brush their teeth. Like, think about that. This is 1940s we're talking about here. So like in the 1800s, there was no regular, hey, brush your damn teeth kind of thing. So it's still new, in the grand scheme of things. Like, wow, we didn't even think to brush our teeth for about 80 years ago. So that kind of thing. But I was on the CDC website, and they have a little section on the information of water-related hygiene, and I kind of wanted to shout out a few facts for you as to why we kind of do what we do. And the one of the biggest things is estimated that washing your hands with soap and water could reduce diarrheal disease associated deaths up to 50%. And researchers in London estimate that if everyone routinely washed their hands, 1 million deaths a year could be prevented. Now, think about that. Washing your hands. We know better. People don't do it. A large percentage of foodborne disease outbreaks are spread by contaminated hands. Appropriate hand washing practices can reduce the risk of foodborne illness and other infections. So, this is my point. I had a stomach bug, 2 weeks ago? And, that thing tore me down. And, I don't know how I got it. It could have been from going out to eat somewhere and people didn't wash their hands. But it's just the fact of the matter is, if I wasn't in today's thing, I could have gone under from dehydration. Well, let's think about, worst case scenario. What if there is an SHTF scenario? What if there is another Katrina or the grid goes down? We have an EMP that knocks out the electrical grid, that kind of thing. If you're living in suburbia or a neighborhood and your sewage no longer works, what about basic sanitation? That's kind of what I'm trying to get at. Like, what are you going to do if you can't flush your toilet or you can't use your toilet? Or what are you going to do if you can't go out and buy soap? Like, are you prepared for that? And when it comes down to saying that it's kind of one of those boring subjects, this is the thing that everyone, I guess, takes for granted because they don't think that step ahead of these basic everyday things that you just take for granted that being able to do, like taking a shower or bathing, that you may not be able to do in an SHTF scenario. Prime example, like I said, it was Hurricane Katrina. People were without power for weeks, stuck on their roofs because there's floodwaters. What do you think's in floodwater? E. coli, nastiness. Or even if you weren't attacked, if your house wasn't covered with floodwater, but you were in an area that was basically, I wouldn't say quarantined, but blocked off because there was a flood that took out the road going to your area and you couldn't leave and you're stuck there. Well, when people can't, there's not an infrastructure for sanitation, disease starts to spread, and that's what took out a lot of people and still takes out a lot of people in third world countries, but that's what takes out a lot of people. So something as simple as disposing of your waste. Now, that's how cholera spreads. Cholera is basically getting diarrhea. It goes back into the water. You drink the contaminated water. You get cholera. You have diarrhea. You die of dehydration because you can't stop having diarrhea or vomiting. It gets back in the water source again, and it just spreads like that. That's cholera. But, stomach bugs can spread through shaking someone's hand. So you want to make sure that you're prepared enough to at least know that, let's think about it. If there's an SHTF scenario and you can't go buy water or the water gets turned off to your house, what are you going to do without water? Well, you're going to go through the storage in your house, and once you're done with the storage in your house, if it's not raining and you're not prepared, like the average Joe, they're going to go out in search of water. Well, they're first they're going to be like, I saw a lake over here. They're going to go to that lake. They're going to drink out of the lake. Probably half of them are not going to process the water because they don't know any better. They're going to get sick, and the potential for a fatality there is huge. Now, if they know better to process the water, then they're a step ahead. But how many people don't know that? So I'm not suggesting we're going to lose if there's a long-term grid down scenario that we're going to lose a lot of people. But let's face it, we really are. Because something as simple as basic hygiene and sanitation is just taken for granted so bad. So, let's really be honest about our knowledge here. And if you are a prepper, you don't even have to get into, you don't have to be all preachy and go to your workplace or whoever you know and be like, hey, well, you need to do this. But at least try to enlighten people to the fact that you can't just drink water from, strange sources, or, hey, boil water for a minute, or that kind of thing. Just to prevent people from dying in that situation. Same with, say you're in a neighborhood and you can't flush your toilet anymore. What are you going to do with your waste? Are you going to do like they did in the 17th or 1700s and crap in a pot and toss it outside in the street? No, because they say you get everybody else sick. So what you need to do is you need to dig, cat hole. You need to dig down like an outhouse, so far away from your house to where you're not going to contaminate your household, but so far away from a local water source like a stream. That way you're not getting everybody else sick. You need to dig down so the ground can kind of act as your compost heap. So that kind of thing. So in my opinion, I would dig down at least a foot, maybe 2 feet. That's why if you watch my get home bag video, I have a collapsible, e-chol from SOG. I have that so I can do that. If I need to defecate in the woods, I can dig a hole, so I'm not sitting here potentially getting people sick, because no one wants that. So that's one thing that I think we all need to kind of understand and accept the fact that we are spoiled in terms of sanitation, and if we lost the basic things that we are kind of come to accustomed to these days, what would you do? And these are the questions that I want you to at least think about, like, wow, what would I do and how would I bathe? So stash soap, make sure you have enough on hand for a good little bit of time, toothpaste, toothbrush, that kind of thing. So another thing I want to finish reading this article on the CDC. I think it's just that important. Let's see. Hand washing can reduce the risk of respiratory infections by 16%. Now, I'm guilty of this, and I think we all are guilty of this. According to the CDC, you need to be washing your hands for 15 seconds in warm, soapy water. Now, you don't need antibacterial soap. It's actually been proven that antibacterial soap versus normal soap, there really isn't that much of a difference. And I have a septic system, so I won't use antibacterial soap anyway, because I need the bacteria in my septic system. However, 15 seconds. I don't do it for 15 seconds. I think I do it for 5, maybe 10. So I'm going to make now a conscious effort, myself, and I'll know my wife about it, to wash your hands for 15 seconds vigorously, because I don't do it long enough. And I think a lot of people don't do it long enough, because if I'm not doing it, then, and I'm crazy about it, well, So 15 seconds washing your hands, it's very important, and you can avoid getting sick from things that are communicable by touching somebody else, or touching a doorknob, or TV remote, which is one of the dirtiest things in the entire world, like at a hospital or a hotel room or something, or even your own house, touching a TV remote. How often do you spray that thing with Lysol? Light switch, that kind of thing, doorknob, going into a public place. There's some nasty stuff out there. So let's see, the use of, if you can't wash your hands, make sure you carry some hand sanitizer with you. Prime example, the use of alcohol hand gel sanitizer in the classroom provided an overall reduction of absenteeism due to infection by 19.8% among 16 elementary schools and 6,000 students. So, obviously here, they used 16 elementary schools as a guinea pig, and they put alcohol, hand sanitizer in the schools, and it reduced infections to keep kids out of school by almost 20%. And that's pretty good. So, I carry hand sanitizer in my truck, so whenever I go somewhere public, I get back in my truck, and I go to the dump or I go to the store or something like that, I'm constantly putting hand sanitizer on. That's just something that you have as an option if you can't go wash your hands, if you can't get to a sink. Now, face and body hygiene. More than 50% of healthy persons have staph infection living in their nasal passages, throats, hair, or skin. And within the first 15 minutes of bathing, the average person sheds 6 by 106 colony-forming units, CFU, of staph infection. So, now I know I lost my great-grandmother's staph infection. She had it in her heart. She got it from visiting my great-grandfather in the hospital. That kind of thing. It was an unfortunate infection that just happened, but staph infection is everywhere. Up your nose, on your face. And you don't want to be sitting there touching random things, especially a wound that you may have, because you don't want to introduce staph infection. So obviously staying clean, having a good medical kit with alcohol pads, wearing gloves, trying to be at least somewhat sterile whenever you're messing with a wound, especially because your skin is a great barrier for bacteria and viruses. And if you have a cut, then that's going to introduce that into your bloodstream, and you don't want that to happen. So let's see. The average individual swimmer contributes at least 0.14 grams of fecal matter to the water. Usually within 15 minutes of entering, showering with soap before swimming helps stop the spread of germs by removing fecal matter from the body. Trachoma, the leading cause of preventable blindness worldwide, is related to lack of facial hygiene. Here's a good one. The spread of pinworms can be reduced by proper hygiene, especially in children, clipping their fingernails and showering them right after they wake up. Hundreds of thousands of persons in the UK, between 1.2 and 1.3% of the total population, acquire outer ear infections each year due to contaminated water from swimming or bathing. So these are the things I'm talking about when I say like good hygiene. So obviously the number one thing I can try to get with this video is think about proper sanitation. Clip your fingernails, bathe. You don't have to. I mean, my wife is completely against using shampoo every day because she's doesn't want to dry your scalp out, and that's fine if you don't want to shampoo, but I mean, at least wash your body daily. So make sure you're using soap when you're washing your hands, 15 seconds. Clip your fingernails. I mean, obviously bathing is a huge one. Make sure that you are regularly kind of disinfecting around your house. Obviously get some Lysol, that kind of thing. You don't want to overly sanitize, because then your kids could actually develop illnesses because they're not fighting off the small stuff they should be. So you don't want to go like too overboard, but obviously you want to make sure that you're disinfecting, especially during the flu seasons and whatnot. But just simple basic things that you can do. Keeping a haircut will prevent a lot of these illnesses and heartache and headache from happening. I mean, let's face it, we're in 2019, and if you look at some of these cities, I mean, San Francisco kind of comes to mind, where the homeless population is so great, people are like defecating in the streets. That's what I'm talking about. That's why I want to kind of get this video out. Where it's 2019, we know better. When people are defecating in the streets, that's what's going to cause illness and disease to start spreading. And if there's any kind of a grid down scenario, that's what's going to happen, and illness is going to spread hardcore. So that's what I'm trying to avoid by at least putting this video out there, so we can kind of get that in the forefront and be like, you know what, we really need to pay attention to this. It's not a good idea to ignore it. So with that being said, I'm going to go ahead in the video now. I'll put a link to that CDC article down in the description so you can kind of read what I'm talking about, read along with it. And if you have anything you want to add that I missed, I'm sure I missed quite a bit, but if you want to throw some down in the comment section, please do. That way we can all kind of have a good general discussion about proper hygiene. With that being said, I'm going to end the video now. If you like my video, please give me a thumbs up. If you haven't subscribed, I'd love to have you as a subscriber. Go ahead and subscribe and share the video with someone you may think that might appreciate it. And with that being said, I will catch y'all later, okay? Bye.